Welcome back, everyone, to TSSA Talks. This is Brian Johnson with Tennessee State Soccer Association. We are here at the historic X&N in Nashville, Tennessee, famous rock and roll venue. We are lucky to be joined by National Director of the Olympic Development Program, Chris Duke with USU Soccer. Chris, welcome back. Thanks for joining us again for part two.
Thank you, Brian. Enjoying every bit of this.
Well, terrific. We really appreciate the conversation. So when we left off from part one, you had kind of taken us from your journey growing up in Las Vegas, finding your way to a Division I college, finding your way into a professional career. And then from there, as your playing days ended, you were able to transition off the field. And I think for a lot of former pros, the first natural transition is into the coaching realm. And so you spent some time there as a coach, made your way back to Kansas City. I love how you talked about the mentors. It's a huge part of people who do stay in the game is finding mentors who can help to lead you, help to be a colleague along the way. You mentioned Peter Vermes. What a great name to have in your arsenal of people that you can rely on. So Peter Vermes helped you to make your transition now from a coach after you said, I think you said like 12 or 13 years as a professional soccer coach, a professional coach who's coaching soccer, now into the administrative range. So that's where I kind of wanted to start off here and to take us from that point when you continue to work in soccer, continue to let your passion for the game and the things that can be accomplished for people through the game, the opportunities and doors that can be opened for people through the game. You started to now provide opportunities for that off the field, but still inside the game. So can you take us kind of over this next set of the interview from leaving the field as a coach and how that mentality has to change and through your administrative career up to today with your role at USYS?
Absolutely. So it was, like I said earlier, it was an interesting transition into the administrative piece of it. One thing that I did learn going through that transition, that I was in a little bit of a bubble as far as what I knew around Kansas City. When I got into that role with Kansas Youth Soccer, it became now widespread to many different states, and the introduction to other executive directors that were and what they were doing in their state. So I learned a lot more about what was going on around the country and how we could influence how the game is, not only in our state, but across the country as members. And I think there's a lot of people have a lot of different views on how the game should be. So if the transition was very difficult because I had my own opinion of how things should be, not only in my state, but in the country, and how I could make a difference as an administrator. And I don't think, I realized at the time what kind of impact I had on the game itself. So it was a great learning experience going through that transition and ended up in making a difference in my own state, along with helping other executive directors and people across the country make a change. So make a difference. So it was a very good experience for me. I'm continuing that journey right now. So,
well, I mean, it is like you say, it's a journey. It's not like any of us had this idea of a career in soccer. When you were a kid, being a soccer coach, there maybe were 50 guys across the country, all guys at that point, whose job was to coach soccer. The idea, the number of us that are out here now, we're living a vision of a dream we couldn't even necessarily see. I mean, my first coach that wasn't a parent was when I was 17 years old. I mean, again, you go to college and you have someone who's a professional who coaches soccer. It's been a part of the journey. I think one thing that's interesting, Chris, is a lot of us have taken the journey. We were all players at one point, most of us, and then became coaches. For those of us who've now gone into more of an administrative role, it's how do you kind of make that first leap? So you're a coach in the Kansas City area. How does someone go from being a coach to all of a sudden becoming an executive director of a state association? All of a sudden you're talking about really, truly being the chief executive officer of a nonprofit organization. I don't know what your budget looked like in Kansas. What years are we talking about here? What was your player? And just how did you go about getting that opportunity to make that step?
I gained a lot of respect in this area as a coach. And I think one of the things that as kids went on and graduated, I had an impact on the immediate kids that I was coaching. I think as time went on, people saw that I had impacts on not just those kids I was coaching, but more of a broad range of other clubs, like dealing with clubs, and my respect for other clubs and learning what they were doing. I think I was asked to be, several people asked me to be in that position, that we're dealing with clubs, and I decided to take it on. I felt like it was my chance to have even a better impact or more of an impact on making a change to some of the things I saw, some of the things that other people in my group saw should be changed in the sport. So it was a good move for me. Just another step in my, like we talked about, the journey.
Yeah.
Trying to make an impact. So it was in 2013 is when I made that jump, and I wasn't in that position very long before I actually moved on to USYS as a whole and worked with the national office, because somebody saw something in me that I was doing here, and his name Chris Moore was in the position at that point with USYS. So at the state level, it was a great chance to make a difference, and now I've had an opportunity to move into another even higher level. And again, the progression was fast, but I was trying to stay on top of things and make sure that I covered all my bases, and I didn't jump too soon because I wanted to learn as much as I could at the state level.
And I think what you're describing there is a rocket ship, Chris. I mean, I look back at just the journey we've talked about with you so far. You went from not even being introduced to the game until you were, like 9, 10 years old when you even came into rec soccer. The idea that a decade later you'd be playing in beautiful San Diego, California at a Division I college, I mean, that's a pretty rocket ship ride. We've got kids right now that start that journey in grassroots soccer at 3, 4, 5 years old, that it's a 15-year journey before they get to college for some of them. In a decade, you went from a youth player being introduced to soccer for the first time to, playing at a Division I university. And then I look at, similarly, your transition from, running a club, really being a successful coach. And there's some administration that comes in with being a club. But you go from there to the executive director of a state, and then to the USYS national office, again, in less than actually like an 8 or 9 year period, that's happened. That's another rocket ship trajectory there. And it's almost a challenge to sort of keep up with all the things that are going on, but there's a lot of new challenges that again, every time you've gone to a different role, there's now a larger responsibility. There's more people you have to be responsible for. What's it like then from going from the CEO of an organization where really you've got a board of directors, I would assume, in Kansas when you're the ED. So as an executive director, you've got people you've got to answer to, but really day to day, you're the one making the choices. So then when this new opportunity comes up with USYS, at that point it was to be the Midwest regional director.
Midwest manager, yes.
General manager, sorry. Yeah, general manager was your title then when you first started. And so all of a sudden you go from sort of the buck stops with me, I'm the one who makes the decisions, to now I got to report back in even a larger hierarchy and with a much larger territory. Tell us a little bit about that transition.
Yeah, and again, that was a transition that I felt like I was going to try and make an impact. And it was more building relationships. And in this game, and I go back to the fact that even when I was coaching, building those relationships and having the effect, there's kids that I knew wouldn't make it to even the professional, or sometimes not even like college, but it was building those relationships and making them well-rounded people. But that was, at the end of the day, that's what I was going to do at every position I was in. And as a general manager, I felt like I had to have relationships with the different states and find out and listen to what their needs were, to work together, and not only to help them build not soccer players, but people within their organization as well. And I think that was one of the biggest things that I've learned going into that position is having the relationships is the most important. It helps move things along. And but you're not always going to agree on things, see some things differently. But that's what makes us the United States. We challenge each other. So that was a huge jump for me to go into that position, especially not knowing everything, because it was such a fast transition into that position. So I learned, not only I'm smart enough to learn and understand and listen, but also somebody had an eye on me and thought I had the ability to make and help with the Midwest. And I'm very blessed to be able to still be in the game and do that. So.
Yeah, well, I think in the journey for all of us, I think in your particular case, it's interesting because it's hard to plot. If you were to go onto a map, it's not like there's a straight line from point A to point B. There, it's some squiggly lines we all have to go through, and we all traverse through our careers. And so I think you can speak specifically to how it's changed even since you took the job with US Youth. So when did you officially start in that general manager role? Roughly, what time frame is that you're starting at US Youth as the Midwest GM?
November 2017.
So here, less than 3 years later, you've got a completely different title, a completely different set of responsibilities, and bosses, your direct reports changed a fair number of times. Let's just say a fair number of times. So over just the last less than 36 months, again, just for people out there, I want a lot of people to fall in love with the game. I hope they'll listen to this interview series and realize there's lots of different paths to stay in our game, to help move our game forward, but you've got to be prepared. It's not always point A plus B doesn't always equal C. Tell us about what you found from the last almost 3 years now in the role that you came in for, and now the role you're serving in.
Yeah, luckily, I've worked for a lot of good people within USYS. The leadership there has been very good to me. And moving into that role very quickly as director of ODP was something that I grew up playing ODP and something I had a passion for. So when we talked internally about how to revitalize that, I wanted to be part of it. I didn't care at what level. Just so happens I got pushed in and accepted the role of, I said pushed in, but accepted the role because of my passion for it of the director. And I felt like this was an opportunity now to make a big change because, in my opinion, there's not enough of finding those special players and how we're going to do it, and trying as much to get away from the pay to play model to a certain extent. There's ways of handling getting those players and special players that don't have an opportunity, and I think ODP represents a lot of that as well. We just this was again another time for me to input what I've learned from all the people that I've been in touch with, and USYS has definitely had some great leadership that's helped me get to where I'm at. So.
Awesome. And then it's an interesting path. And I think a lot of people can understand the love for the game, the passion is something that has to be there every day, but there's also got to be enough agility to be prepared for changes in youth sports, in soccer specifically. There are going to be changes that are going to happen. We're all trying to find new and better ways to service our game, and you've got to be prepared. Like, I want to encourage people to take up roles. I want the next generation coming in my spot behind me and into your spot behind you to be even better prepared and even more excited about the future. But I just want people to have a realistic picture for what it looks like. There's two more things I want you to talk about before we wrap up part 2 and then go to part 3, which is where I'm most excited about spending the time talking about the future. The last 2 things I want you to address for us, if you could. Number 1, you all of a sudden found yourself in a lot of meetings with folks at MLS, with folks at US Soccer and MLS to talk about how they're interested in revitalizing ODP and how this program that has come from its heights to has had again a squiggly line across time, it really is finding its way back towards prominence in the future. So some of those conversations, all of a sudden you find yourself, and again, just your first couple of years in this role, number 1. And the second thing I want us to touch on is, I think a lot of folks out there may not be soccer professionals, but what a lot of folks out there who are going to watch these videos are soccer parents. And that's another role that I want to touch on here before we move on. So in addition to talking about those MLS and US soccer talks and how they're changing ODP, I'd also like for you to talk about your experiences as a soccer dad, a soccer parent here, who's now raised not 1, but 2 professional soccer players out of his household. So those are the 2 things I want us to wrap up here before we finish part 2 of our interview.
Great. I tell you what, on the MLS and the US soccer, that environment, and being involved with them has been a game changer. I think one of the things that I've learned in coming in as an executive director, and now director of ODP, is that there's a lot of smart, knowledgeable, technical directors, executive directors within state associations that, including yourself there, BJ, that need to be involved in the process. I think MLS realizes that as well as U.S. Soccer. There's that connection, and I think we are, as USYSD, set up, to make things happen. Because you guys, we all have connections to the players. We're in the trenches. I've been in the trenches. I'm still in the trenches to a certain extent because we're all working together.
Yeah.
So that has been a great experience. I think the direction that we're going is very positive. Obviously, the situation with COVID has put a stop to a lot of things. It's been very disappointing to that. But on the positive side, we're still talking. We still have state association technical directors like yourself involved in making things happen. So that relationship has just grown, and it's going to continue to grow. I think we're all on the same page when it comes to what the end game, we want the end game to be. Again, like you said, there's going to be points where we may go a different direction. I say different direction, get off a little bit off course because we have to, depending on the situation. But we have a lot of smart people involved across this country. So we gotta. That's one thing I want to surround myself, and that's why I am where I am. Because one thing I've learned, you got to surround yourself. I'm not perfect, so I got to surround myself with people that know a lot more than I do. That'll get us there. So this is what MLS and U.S. Soccer, I think, have really realized, is that the foundation's there.
There's a missing piece in our country. We're even with all of our professional organizations, even the way that the number of professional teams are growing, even if they're all going to have fully funded academies, they're not all going to be able to reach all of the players in all of the corners of our country. There's a lot of the states in the South region where we work, that you work with us, that are going to be underrepresented. Just like we want this video series to talk about people that are underrepresented in another fashion, there are players that are not going to be able to be represented that aren't within driving distance of an MLS or a USL market. And until we can really find ways to truly tap that potential and offer those opportunities, we're going to continue to not be what we can be. And we all just want to be the very best that we can be. So we really appreciate the leadership that you're bringing there. I know some of those conversations can be frustrating because we see the light at the end of the tunnel. And we're all so excited about there, but it's just, we can't get there tomorrow. It's just not realistic. And finding the reasonings and the steps between here and there. So thanks for what you're doing. I appreciate the way you explain that and how excited you are about it. So as we wrap up part 2 here, talk to us about, just give, no big deal, Chris, in 90 seconds, tell parents out there how they can develop 2 professional soccer players in their households too. Since you've got the secret sauce, man, so share it with everybody.
Well, I don't know if it's I've been very blessed. One of the things that I look back on my kids when they were younger and bringing them to all those soccer practices I was coaching and them being involved and even going to their other sports. One of the things that I learned is I'm just enjoying them, watching them play. I tried not to get into what they were doing wrong, even as a soccer coach. There's just let them enjoy the game. And I think that's part of why even my daughter has excelled, and she was a little bit more social, so she did. And there were the avenues for the women's side is strong as the men's right now. But I sat back and I watched and I enjoyed. And when they asked, I gave them what the knowledge that I had, and they learned from me. And they learned that they needed to learn from other people as well and being around. But I think. There's not a magical formula to make it happen. It's just let them enjoy the sport. That's the biggest thing I get. Any advice I can give a parent.
Well, I think that's great, Chris. And I think it's really important that people know it's not that the special strength, agility, and quickness trainer, you got them when they turned 13. It's not that you beat them into the basement where you had weights they had to lift every day. Ultimately, at the end of the day, there was an environment created, and naturally, because you're a soccer coach and you're watching games on TV and they're in that environment and they're thinking it, perhaps there's more opportunities. But at the end of the day, those 2 young men had to come to love the game and have a passion for pursuing the game. No amount of genetics, no amount of playing history, no amount of you coaching them was going to make that any different if they didn't come to their own to a love of the game.
That's right. Absolutely. it's I enjoy watching them still play as professionals, and that's just show up and watch, and we have fun with it. That's what
Man, I can tell from that smile on your face. That's a big proud dad smile. And being a dad myself, I get it, man, and I'm thrilled for you. I think you mentioned one of your boys is going to be playing tonight. Is that right?
Absolutely. Cameron, my youngest, plays tonight. May get some playing time. He's still 19, but he's already starting his first. He started in his first game already, and but again, he goes out and he enjoys his playing, even though he's getting paid for it. He's still paid. It's a way you have to do that. You have to enjoy and love the game to be successful.
Great lessons there. All right, we're going to wrap up part 2 of our video series, our interview with Chris Duke, National Director of ODP. We're going to take a little break, and we'll encourage all of you to come back for part 3 of our interview, where we're going to talk with Chris about the future of soccer in our state, in our country, really across the world, and how we can all do our parts. What are the things and the steps we can do to help make things move forward? Chris, thanks a bunch. We'll be back here in just a couple of minutes for part 3 of our video series.